may or may not have heard the Avaya Breeze product.
35 minutes.
We're going to take you through a high-level overview of the product as well as some use case scenarios. And joining us today will be Colin McKenzie from Avaya. Welcome, Colin. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Avaya?
I'm Colin McKenzie. I'm a digital transformation specialist. I'm primarily focused around Avaya Breeze, but in addition to working with Avaya's engagement solutions, I also have a fair bit of background in application development, workflow automation, and cloud.
Sounds great. Thanks, Colin. So, a few housekeeping things before we start. Just so you know, folks, your mic will be muted. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat window. We'll try to get to them if time permits. If not, we'll be sure to reach out to you post-webinar and answer those questions for you, either someone at CTI or Colin directly. So, great. With that said, Colin, let's jump right into Avaya Breeze. High level, really layman's terms, what is Avaya Breeze and what does this really do for, what is Avaya doing with Avaya Breeze?
Well, I mean, the easiest way to explain it is it's an application platform that you can use to build real-time communications applications. So you can orchestrate interactions between people, media, devices, business events, and that could be anything from a call, a text message, a social media post, an alert from a system or an inventory system that triggers an alert when there's a shortage. Maybe it's fraud detection. So any of those kinds of events can trigger some sort of automated workflow to happen that can be communications enabled. And that's what Breeze does. So it makes it simple and fast to create those kinds of applications that are really geared around business-driven outcomes across all those different communications modalities. And the great thing is you don't need to have a really detailed understanding of networks and communication stuff and protocols and ports and all of that to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, great. I think one of the best things I've heard people say at Avaya, and I've heard you say it, and I've heard some other folks say it. Breeze does cool stuff, right? That's the really high level layman's definition of what Breeze does. It just does cool stuff.
You can build cool stuff with it, absolutely.
With that said, that's a great high-level overview of things, and I think before we get into some of those things like the applications and things like snap-ins, plugins, Java programming, and everything like that, why does a company, why does someone watching right now, why do they need Avaya Breeze? Why is that important to their business going forward?
Well, there's a lot of benefits from strictly a business point of view. So I think one of the most important things is it allows you to focus on solving a business problem. So instead of worrying about what software, what platform do I have, what capabilities and features did I get on this release, it allows you to completely turn that around and say, what is the business problem that I need to solve, and to have a platform and a set of tools that allows you to do it and to bring that solution to market a lot faster and at a lower cost. So, any rich contextual communication application you can do by literally just dragging and dropping a couple of boxes on a graphical interface. So it allows you to simplify this kind of delivery of real-time communication applications that, again, are just geared around just trying to solve business problems. And you don't have to throw everything out to do it. You don't have to throw out your communications infrastructure. You can extend all those investments that you've got and tap into existing IT infrastructure and existing systems. So it allows not only for you to solve those problems, but to do it in a way that you can kind of act as a glue and bring together all these disparate systems in a way that you couldn't before. So it allows you to solve the kinds of problems that you didn't have an easy way of doing before.
So you talked about Breeze's problem-solving ability and its ease of use, but can you dig a little deeper into things and tell us the real key capabilities of Avaya Breeze?
Well, at the core, I mean, it's a platform that allows you to build or embed real-time communications into an application or into a process or into a workflow. So there's a number of things that are there to enable you to do that. So there are Java SDKs, REST APIs, and again, these are provided in a way that you don't have to have detailed know-how about the telephony side of it. You can simply drag or drop a box, stick a line of code in to leverage a communications API to make a call. So you've got this common set of methods that you can bring in voice, video, SMS, email, presence into applications very, very easily and quickly. And then there's a lot of other things that are within Breeze that help to address issues that people typically run into when they're trying to deploy these kinds of applications. So you've got security built in, reliability, scalability, clustering. And then the bright side is not only do developers have the ability to build these applications, but you can build them in a way that you can sort of snap them in and reuse them. So you can build something that you can then go and reuse and snap into another application. We call those snap-ins. And you have the ability to go in and find snap-ins that other people have developed. So maybe it's something that Avaya has developed. Maybe it's something that a third party has done to build an interface and a connector into a common third-party system. So it allows a very high level of modular reuse across the environment as well. And then something which I think is great is there's cloud developer sandboxes. There are graphical design tools that are built in so that really within minutes you can ramp up, jump in, and start building applications versus a normal learning curve of days, weeks, or months.
Yeah, that's a really nice dive into things. I think the main point, would you say it's fair to say that whether you're a telecom team who does not have the Java programming experience, or you're a programming and development team who doesn't have the telecom experience, would you say this is built and available and useful to either one of those teams?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the real benefits, because you've got folks maybe whether it's on the business side that understand the business problem that needs to be solved, people on the telecom side that understand communications but maybe aren't as familiar with the other pieces, and then you've got these other IT systems which invariably are part of what's needed to solve that problem, and this provides a glue to tie all those people and all those resources and all those processes together seamlessly.
Yeah, it's great, and again, it just leads it to that ease of use and the ability for anyone to use it, and of course it could even mean that both teams come together and meet in the middle and work together to solve, like you said, a business use case problem. So I think that really lends itself to the key capabilities of Breeze. So with that said, well, let's focus a little bit for the telecom folks or the telephony teams that are out there. In the Aura platform, where does Breeze sit? Where does it sit in the architecture of that entire platform?
Right in the heart of it. So, I mean, Avaya Breeze is a key part of the Aura platform, and really right in the center of application sequencing. So to Session Manager, for those that are familiar with Session Manager, Breeze it's a SIP entity, just like a communication manager. So it really unlocks, I think, the whole promise of enterprise IMS, because it takes it beyond telephony and extends that to any application. So the applications that you've got within that sort of heart of Aura are no longer bound to a CM. They're separate, they're distinct, they can act on different kinds of entities. And of course, even within Aura, I mean, Breeze can be used with any telephony system, so anything that can be configured to work within a Avaya Aura Session Manager, you can extend those communication capabilities using Breeze as well.
With that said, maybe we could just talk about some of the components. We've talked about, snap-ins. What exactly is a snap-in, and what does it do, and how does it work within Breeze?
I mean, a snap-in is an application within Breeze, so it's something that you can literally, snap into another application or snap in to the environment and make available for users. So whether it's an application, maybe it's a connector to a database or a third-party system, It's basically a modular part of an application that allows you to sort of snap it in and reuse it. So reusable developer code that's built within Avaya Breeze. So again, it can be anything from an out-of-the-box application that's complete in and of itself to something that can be leveraged within another application. Like I said, maybe it's a connector to a cloud service or a connector to a third-party application. So the benefit is it allows developers to create their own snap-ins so that they can create modular capabilities that they can extend more easily across different processes and different apps. But it also allows developers to tap into snap-ins that others have built. So it basically, hey, I'm looking to tie into this common cloud service without having to worry about all the fiddly bits about how the REST service calls work and how the integration works. You can just leverage a connector, a snap-in that somebody else has already developed, and just modularly snap it into the application and save yourself a lot of time.
And how are folks getting a hold of these? Let's say, obviously, you can develop your own internally, but these ones that have already been developed by, say, Avaya or possibly even a third-party developer, how are folks and companies and businesses getting a hold of these snap-ins?
Yeah, Avaya makes those available, and certainly there are a number that we have available as well that we can leverage and or build. So it may be something where you've identified that there's an opportunity for something that's modular that needs to be done, but you don't necessarily have the resources or the time to be able to do it. We even have the ability to create those, but there are a number of them. All sorts of examples like engagement assistant is something that I use almost on a daily basis to allow myself to just sort of quickly dial in via voice, and it will go in, check my calendar, and see if I have a calendar entry for an upcoming conference, and it will automatically give me the option of dialing and connecting my voice call, into that bridge. So that's an example of a snap-in that it's one that I happen to use on a regular basis, but that's something that we make available that if somebody else sees the need for that capability, then they can just go and get that snap-in from Avaya, snap it into their environment, and take advantage of the capability as well. So you can build them yourself. Avaya makes them available, and third parties have them available as well.
Right. Yeah. And of course, I've actually seen that engagement snapping work. It is really, really, really slick. Whether it works through the one touch or through Siri, it is a really, really nice way to save time. So I think this day you probably spend 7 minutes trying to join a video conference, and we've all been in that place before. And this engagement snapping really makes that much, much smoother and easy to use for sure. So great example there, Colin. So I've heard you mention, and we've heard you say a lot of stuff about dragging, dropping, ease of use, and that all is done through Engagement Designer. Can you kind of take us through what exactly the Engagement Designer snapping is?
Sure. Engagement Designer is it's basically a browser-based visual designer, and allows you to do workflow-based design and automation. So while this may not have been as familiar to the sort of hardcore developers that would be maybe more familiar with the Java SDK, from a business point of view, one of the things that was fairly common was for people to look at business process modeling. And BPMN, Business Process Modeling Notation 2.0, is sort of the standard for business process modeling. And so it leverages that standard within this visual designer and literally allows you to just drag and drop boxes, events, tasks, decision gateways, to basically model the use case directly. And for folks that are looking at trying to solve a business problem, in a lot of cases, they've already flushed out and whiteboarded these kinds of workflows, and they've already worked out how to solve the problem visually based on a workflow. It literally allows you to map that visual design and that visual solution for a problem directly in, and underneath the hood, all of those little tasks and boxes and things that they've dropped into that visual designer, they're all communications enabled, and they're basically exposed APIs from that SDK under the hood. So all the really complicated stuff has been handled to make calls, to connect things to bridges, to do, web service integration, to add participants to calls, to do text to speech. I mean, all these kinds of things are enabled under the hood with these APIs, but it makes it really easy to just quickly create an application with virtually no programming or communications expertise. You've got a custom palette that there's all these standard things that are available that would be familiar to most people from a business process modeling point of view, but we've extended and customized it to add communications kinds of capabilities. Make a call, add a participant, drop a call, forward a call, send an SMS, send an email. I mean, any of these kinds of things, we've extended and customized the palette of options within that visual designer. But you have the ability to customize it yourself. So those snap-ins that we talked about before, anybody can create their own snap-in and expose their own kinds of tasks to say, maybe in our enterprise, it's really important to do a lot of IoT, a lot of Internet of Things integration. So you can basically have custom task types to do that sort of IoT integration, if that's the sort of thing which is going to be used a lot in your workflows. And then the nice thing about Engagement Designer is that it also houses a lot of the administrative components as well. How you open, save, load workflows. How things are deployed into production. What phone numbers they get tied to for triggers. So for example, if you want to have a certain workflow trigger every time a phone number is called, it makes it really straightforward and simple to be able to deploy those things in that kind of a way and to manage the sort of the umbrella requirements around those workflows and use cases being run in production.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really slick piece of Breeze, and I think that the fact that it's GUI based doesn't really require any Java experience to get it going, like you said. And I think the easiest way to think about it really is a lot of times it starts with an event and moves its way into an outcome. And like you said, whether it be things like a database dip or a lookup or something along those lines, it reaches an outcome at the end of that workflow. So, would you say that that's pretty spot on with how it works?
Yeah, almost like a business communications enabled version of if this then that. If something happens as an event, whether it's a phone call, a trigger, some shortage in an inventory system, a big red button that's pressed on the wall. I mean, it doesn't matter what the event is. Something happens, and then you need to automate the workflow from there, and it makes those tools really easy to just visually drag and drop, what needs to happen when an event gets triggered to end up with that business outcome at the other end. And the outcome may be you've had to do some things like bring a war room together and set up an automatic video bridge and automatically bring 10 people into it. There might be a whole variety of things that might need to happen when that event gets triggered. But Engagement Designer makes it really easy to sort of visually step through the use case for the solution.
Yeah, very cool. So I think that's going to really lead us to our next thing. Is we've got a high level overview of things and an understanding of what Breeze is and its components, but we're talking about it being an event-driven, problem-solving platform. Do you think maybe you could give us sort of, or maybe elaborate on those last few examples you had of a really, really solid use case that Breeze would solve in a business environment, something like the team engagement, or like you said, pressing an emergency button. How does Breeze, really make that use case possible?
To me, in fact, to me, this is the really exciting part because, again, it gets away from features and boxes and ports and things like that, and it gets into really what I think is the heart of Avaya Breeze, which is you can turn the whole conversation around and say, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and really focus on that. And whatever the problem is, however the right way to solve it is, you can model the solution and communications enable the solution and workflow around it. So instead of talking about the platform, you can talk about the use case and the problem. So to me, this is the exciting part. So there's probably a couple of examples that maybe highlight some of what can be powerful about this sort of capability. Like a simple scenario with real-time speech analytics as an example. So there are customers that have come to us and said, we have finance compliance issues and adherence. A customer came to us and their finance group, their agents have to go through a script that they have to follow. They have to press a button on their screen acknowledging that they followed it, and they're finding through quality reviews or recordings that the compliance of the agents doing that was very low. And this was a real issue to them because there was a legal and a regulatory problem for them because the agents were required to say that, and they could be subject to fines. So there's a real financial issue related to this problem. They had to clearly say their name. They had to say their state license number when they were calling customers about loan applications. And they were trying to deal with this in different ways, looking at workforce optimization solutions, but they found that it really couldn't impact the call in real time. And that was the key problem that they were trying to figure out how to solve. Is how can we deal with this in real time, listen in to the conversation, and if the agent doesn't say the name or the license number when they're supposed to, find some way of responding and letting them know and reminding them in real time with some sort of a whisper message that only the agent can hear. So that was the problem they were trying to solve. And then in theory, when the agent corrected themselves, they'd want that tone or message to stop playing and maybe do something like, instead of having the agent manually say that they did or didn't do something, have that compliance automatically recorded, so it sort of took it out of the agent's hands. So they wanted a solution that was passive. It didn't require the agent to interact or do anything in any way. So through Avaya Breeze, we worked with them to solve that. They incorporated real-time speech recognition right into the workflow automatically. So the agent placed a call about a loan application to a home finance customer. And after the customer answers, it can listen to everything that the agent said and do speech detection. And if the agent forgot to say the state license number, it would play a reminder tone that only the agent could hear. So it would remind them, it would say, hey, you need to say your license number and correct the issue. And then it would continue listening. And then automatically, once they did it and corrected it, it would flag that, push it into an in-memory data grid within the Breeze environment, and have that then subsequently stored within their system to let them know that the agent had automatically done it. So that's an example of a problem which required a real-time solution versus an after-the-fact one, but because of the real-time speech analytics component and the subsequent sort of back and forth and text-to-speech requirements, that would have been a really, really difficult problem for them to solve otherwise. But Avaya Breeze made it easy, and it was a relatively trivial workflow to deploy within Breeze. Maybe another one that touches on something that I mentioned earlier about dynamic team formation. We did have a customer that was they had a problem around emergency response for tunnels. Transportation Authority was the customer. And we worked with them. They needed to solve this problem about how they could quickly deal with emergency response within the tunnels and accelerate the response timing. So the scenario was, if there's an emergency and somebody pressed, literally a large red button, emergency button on the wall, they wanted to be able to rapidly bring the right people together to respond instead of having to go and pull that team together somewhat manually and work out who the right resources were based on which button was pushed. And in an ideal scenario, take advantage of the existing communications that were available, video surveillance cameras that would be in the tunnels, to augment the the real-time situational awareness of the team that was responding to it. So we were able to work with them. We automated the use case using it via Breeze, so it now intercepts that big red button, that emergency call, geolocates the source to figure out what are the correct video cameras in the tunnel to bring in, automatically activates overhead announcements, automatically activates the paging system through phones and loudspeakers, so it communication enabled all these other pieces of the puzzle. Those video cameras in the tunnel are then brought into a video bridge. The emergency team is dynamically formed on the fly. They're notified over SMS, email, voice. They can be automatically brought into the video bridge. Or if they're somewhere maybe they don't have access to video, they can be brought in over audio. So it instantly identifies the right people that need to respond, and then works out who the fallback people are if those people can't respond. And then communication enables that whole workflow from end to end. So brings them into the multi-party call, and it allows this response in seconds that may have previously taken, best case, maybe minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour. In some cases was taking hours to get the right people together and notify them. And in a scenario like that, when there's an emergency, that time difference can certainly be critical, where somebody's safety could be at risk. So, so those are a couple of examples.
Yeah, I think two things that when we talk about these use cases that don't get brought up a lot when we talk about the hardware and the components and the the back end sort of things are things that everything you just described is real time and automated. And I think those are two huge use cases when you're solving problems, especially like you mentioned in a public safety environment like the tunnels, but then also like in a regulatory environment, like you mentioned with the finance company and their call center needing to comply with regulations. So I think real time and automation are huge benefits of Breeze. And then, of course, you also mentioned things like, this used to be a lot harder to do, especially when you start doing real-time text and you start talking about, automating some of those things, the tones in an agent's ear and that sort of thing. So really great use cases. Do you maybe have another one for us that, obviously a transportation authority, really big public safety company, finance, I think hit homes for a lot of our customers. Maybe one more example that's something that maybe, not an everyday customer, but maybe something in a vertical that, would appeal to sort of everybody sort of thing.
Well, I think, for example, there are a lot of things that we're doing that are embedding click-to-call, video chat from a mobile standpoint. So we're seeing a lot of customers in certain verticals like insurance or healthcare, but this is maybe something that a lot of people can relate to, where the ability to do something in real time that leverages a remote expert or somebody from whether this is a nurse, whether this is an insurance adjuster, but somebody that needs to work with a customer or a consumer, but they're clearly somewhere else. But to be able to bring the power of mobility, the power of things like mobile video in to do something as simple as maybe it's a nursing follow-up. So the ability to save that patient the time of going in, transporting to wherever the local healthcare facility is, having the time for that remote expert, whether that's a doctor or a specialist to come in. I mean, that's a lot of sort of resource time that goes into solving that problem in a traditional way. But the ability to connect those different people together through something like mobile video, and to do it easily and automatically with whatever device it is they have in their hand, whether that's a computer or a mobile device, whether it's a room video system in a hospital that a doctor or a specialist might have access to. So easily connecting patients in for remote follow-ups is something which is a really fantastic way of leveraging the technology and automating all the pieces of how to solve that problem of bringing together not just those resources from a communication point of view, but maybe it's information from their healthcare record. Maybe it's the scheduling component of when the actual meeting and event is supposed to take place. But the same kind of technology can even be used for things like an insurance adjustment. So instead of having something go around in circles and have all sorts of back and forth for days or weeks for something as simple as maybe an insurance claim on an automobile accident, the ability to bring a remote insurance adjuster or an expert in and then leverage mobile video to say, look, here's the damage on the car. Okay, I can see what you're dealing with now. You can solve that kind of a problem in minutes, versus having a lot of back and forth, like I said, over days or weeks that certainly from the customer's point of view as well as from the business point of view is a far less efficient way of trying to solve that problem. So those are some examples that might relate to people on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's great, and you and I are probably the farthest from sales guys out there, but to me it just makes sense when you talk about the adjuster. I mean, everyone's out there. We've all got these, and Breeze is just going to go ahead and leverage some of that great technology that we all have in our pockets and have on our desktops, and sort of bring it together. And again, it's going to be ease of use. It's going to get us and people connected faster than normally would, and probably more efficiently for sure.
Well, that's not all the time we have for today. So, I'd like to thank Colin McKenzie for joining us and all the valuable insight into the Avaya Breeze platform. We hope it's been informative for you. But should you need any more information or have any questions, you can reach us at the email address on your screen or visit our website, consultech.com. Thanks again for joining, and have a great day.